You shouldn't have trusted her, the voice on the phone said coldly. She's not who you think she is. Those words have haunted me for weeks. Not just because of the voice, calm, certain, and far too familiar, but because deep down, I knew he was right. I just didn't want to believe it. I'd fallen in love with a dream, and now I was wide awake, staring at the wreckage of my life. But let me go back to the beginning, to the day that changed everything. The day I walked into a luxury car dealership with nothing but curiosity, and walked out with something far more dangerous, a reason to lose control. I hadn't planned on buying a car that afternoon. I already had a sleek black Audi that turned heads, but I was celebrating. I'd just landed a multi-million-dollar merger after months of negotiations, and my assistant had all but begged me to treat myself. Go wild, she laughed. You've earned it. The dealership was quiet, modern, filled with polished chrome and silent anticipation. I remember the scent of leather, the sunlight reflecting off polished hoods, and the voice, soft, warm, and curious, that asked, "Can I help you, sir?" I turned and saw her. Clara. She wore a modest navy blue dress and a name tag that barely clung to her fitted blouse. Her hair was pulled back into a low bun, a few rebellious strands curling near her temples. But it was her eyes that caught me off guard. Hazel, wide, and impossibly sad. Like she had seen too much and learned to smile anyway. I don't know what made me say it, but I smiled back and replied, "You already have." She blushed, just slightly. Not the fake kind of blush you get from someone who knows how attractive they are, but a real, almost awkward reaction. It caught me off guard. We talked about engines, horsepower, safety ratings, all the surface stuff, but I was watching her hands. She kept fiddling with a silver ring on her right index finger. I asked her if she was a car enthusiast, and she said she loved classic Mustangs, the kind her father used to drive before he walked out on her mother. I guess I always thought if I could restore something broken, she said with a nervous laugh, maybe I could fix the way things ended. Something about that line made my chest tighten. I bought the car. A midnight blue Mercedes-AMG GT. I didn't need it, but I wanted an excuse to see her again. I gave her my business card, which I never do. I told myself it was because she gave me excellent service, but deep down, I hoped she'd call. She didn't. Not for 3 weeks. When she finally did, I was in a boardroom arguing over acquisition terms. I let the call go to voicemail, and when I listened to it later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, breathless. "Hi, Mr. Walker. I mean, Jack. It's Clara. From the dealership. I hope it's okay," I called. "I found something you left behind. Or maybe I just needed an excuse. Anyway, if you want it back, come find me." She gave no details. Just that soft, careful voice that already knew it was a risk calling me. I found myself back at the dealership the next morning, heart pounding like a teenager. But she wasn't there. A manager said she'd quit the day before. Quit. I was halfway back to my car when I saw her, sitting at the little coffee shop across the street, staring at her phone. I walked in, sat across from her without a word, and waited. She looked up slowly and gave me that sad smile again. "I didn't know how else to see you," she whispered. "And I couldn't stay there, not after." "After what?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. She hesitated, then said quietly, "My ex-husband works there." Or did. "He's the sales manager." My stomach sank. The dealership, the ring, the sadness in her eyes, it all made sense now. "You never mentioned him," I said. "I never got the chance," she replied. "He found out I talked to you. That I liked you. He made it impossible." And there it was. The hook was in deep, and I couldn't pull away. We started seeing each other in secret. Quiet dinners. Walks in the park. Movie nights at my penthouse, where she curled into me like she was afraid the world might take her away again. She told me about her marriage. How he was charming at first, then jealous, possessive, mean. How he blamed her for everything that went wrong in his life, including his gambling debt and the loss of their unborn child. "I stayed because I thought I could fix him," she said one night, lying beside me in the dark. "I thought if I loved him hard enough, he'd stop breaking things. Including me." I listened, feeling both furious and helpless. I wanted to protect her, but some part of me already knew, when a man like that loses something he thinks belongs to him, he doesn't let go quietly. Still, I was in too deep. I didn't tell my friends about Clara. I didn't bring her to company events. She said she wasn't ready, and honestly, I wasn't either. Something about her felt too delicate, too unfinished. Like if I showed her to the world, they'd pick her apart. But in the quiet moments, when we made pancakes on Sundays, when she read out loud from the books she loved, when she laughed like she'd forgotten the sound of her own joy, I believed we had something real. Something worth risking everything for. And then, one night, everything changed. I was walking back to my car after a meeting when I saw him. A stocky man with dark eyes and a twisted grin, leaning against the hood of my Mercedes like he owned it. "Nice ride," he said. I stopped, sizing him up. "Can I help you?" "I think you already did," he said. "You helped yourself to my wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected. He laughed, slow and humorless. "You think that makes a difference to me?" There was something in his voice, calm, like he'd already planned everything, like he knew something I didn't. "I know who you are," he said. "Mr. Big Shot. Think you can just take what doesn't belong to you and drive off into the sunset?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. "You know," he said, leaning in, "she never told you the whole story, did she?" My heart froze. "What story?" He smiled. "The part where she begged me to take her back. The part where she cried on the floor of our apartment just 2 weeks ago. Or maybe the part where she swore she was only using you to make me jealous." I clenched my fists, refusing to flinch. But something inside me cracked. "I don't believe you," I said. "You will," he replied. "Soon." And then he walked away, leaving behind a silence that swallowed everything. I didn't go home right away that night. I drove aimlessly, circling streets I didn't recognize, watching the city blur through the windshield as if the motion might somehow steady my thoughts. His words echoed over and over like a curse I couldn't shake. "She swore she was only using you to make me jealous." I wanted to believe it was a lie, a pathetic attempt by a bitter ex to sabotage what Clara and I had built. But the way he'd said it, with that calm, unnerving certainty, cut deeper than I expected. And worse, it stirred something I didn't want to admit, doubt. Clara had been everything I never knew I needed, gentle, thoughtful, raw in a way most people forgot how to be. But I'd always known she was holding something back. There were moments when her eyes would darken for no reason, or she'd disappear into herself mid-conversation. I told myself it was trauma. Scars that needed time. But what if it was more than that? By the time I reached my building, the city was asleep and my thoughts were screaming. She was waiting in my apartment, curled up on the couch in one of my hoodies, a mug of chamomile tea in her hands. She looked up when I walked in, her face softening into relief, but I didn't smile back. "You're late," she said gently. "I ran into someone," I replied, closing the door a little too firmly. Her posture shifted. Subtle, but I saw it. She put the mug down slowly. "Who?" "Your ex-husband." She flinched like I'd slapped her. That told me more than anything else. He was waiting by my car. Said some things. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself like she needed protection from the air between us. "What did he say?" I hesitated. Watching her. Measuring every blink, every breath. "He said you begged him to take you back 2 weeks ago. That you were only using me to make him jealous." Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. That silence hurt more than I thought possible. "Is it true?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, even though my heart felt like it was tearing itself apart inside my chest. "No," she said finally, shaking her head, but her voice cracked on the word. "God, no. Jack, I swear, he's lying. That's what he does. He twists everything." "Then why didn't you tell me you saw him?" I asked. "Why hide it?" "I wasn't hiding anything," she whispered. "I didn't want to bring him into what we have. I didn't want him to poison this. I wanted to believe her. Every inch of me wanted to erase the doubt and wrap her in my arms and pretend the outside world didn't exist. But something had shifted. "You should have told me," I said quietly. I deserve to know. She nodded slowly, tears pooling in her eyes but never falling. You're right. I didn't want to lose you too. I didn't say anything. I walked past her into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed until morning. The days after that were quiet. We didn't talk much. We moved around each other like ghosts, as if afraid that one more misstep would shatter everything. She made breakfast. I went to work. She texted me. I answered politely. I was building walls again, and I hated it. But I didn't know how not to. Then, on a Thursday night, she was gone. No note. No call. Just an empty closet and a text that came 3 hours later. I didn't want to be the reason you stopped believing in love. I'm sorry. I stared at those words, numb. Like someone had taken a piece of my heart and walked out the door with it. I didn't chase her. Not right away. Part of me told myself it was for the best. That I dodged something messy, something complicated. I poured myself into work again. Took on 3 new clients. Traveled. Networked. Smiled through meetings. But nothing felt right. Until I got the call. It came from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something, intuition, maybe, made me pick up. Jack Walker. Yes. This is Detective Riley with the NYPD. I'm calling about Clara Moore. I stood up so fast I knocked over the stool beside my desk. What happened? She's at the hospital. Bellevue. Minor injuries. But she asked for you. I didn't ask questions. I just ran. When I got to the hospital, she looked like a stranger. Her lip was split. Bruising along her jaw. A bandage on her temple. But it was her eyes, haunted, vacant, that broke me. She tried to smile when she saw me, but her whole face trembled. I didn't know who else to call, she said softly. What happened? I asked, taking her hand. He followed me, she whispered. I moved out so he couldn't find me. But he did. He waited outside the coffee shop near the train station. Said he just wanted to talk. Her voice shook. I told him to leave me alone. He grabbed my arm. I screamed. Someone called the cops. He ran. I felt something primal rise in my chest. Fury. The kind that makes your hands shake. But I pushed it down. I'm here now, I said. You're safe. I'm so sorry, Jack, she said, and the tears came then, silent and unstoppable. I thought if I left, he'd stop. That maybe you'd be better off without me. I squeezed her hand. Don't say that. I lied to you, she confessed. I did see him. He showed up at my apartment and begged me to come back. And for 1 second, just one, I almost said yes. Not because I loved him. Because I was scared of being alone again. I closed my eyes, the words heavy. But then I thought of you, she continued, her voice raw. Of how you looked at me like I mattered. Like I wasn't broken. And I couldn't go back. For a long time, we sat there, saying nothing. Just holding on. She came home with me that night. I cooked dinner. She fell asleep on the couch. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Until I checked my voicemail. There was a message. No name. Just breathing. Then a voice, calm and cruel. You think you've won? This isn't over, Jack. Not even close. The next morning, I called a private security firm. I didn't tell Clara. Not yet. She looked so peaceful for the first time in what felt like forever, still curled under the blanket on my couch, hair a mess, breathing soft. After everything she'd been through, she needed rest, not more fear, not more shadows. But I couldn't ignore the voicemail. The low, deliberate voice. The threat. I played it back 5 times, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, the pause before my name. He wasn't just angry, he was calculating. The kind of man who didn't lash out once and move on. He lingered. He plotted. He wanted me to be afraid. And if I was honest, I was. Not for myself, but for her. The security team installed cameras around my apartment within 24 hours, front entrance, back alley, elevators. They set up alerts on my phone for any motion. One of the guys, a tall ex-cop named Drew, started tailing Clara quietly during the day. She thought he was just a new doorman. I didn't correct her. I hated the secrecy, but I told myself it was necessary. She'd been hunted enough. She didn't need to know she was still being watched, even if it was for her safety. The first week after the hospital, things felt okay. Not perfect, but better. Clara smiled more. She painted again, something she hadn't done in years, she said. Our walls started filling with her work. Colors. Abstract shapes. Beautiful chaos. Like she was pulling light out of the dark one canvas at a time. Sometimes I'd catch her standing at the window, staring down at the street below with a tight expression, like she was bracing herself for something. But when I asked what she was thinking, she'd shake her head and say, "I'm just grateful." But I knew better. We were both waiting for the next storm. It came 2 weeks later, during dinner. We were sitting on the balcony, candles lit, a soft jazz playlist humming through the outdoor speakers. She was laughing about something ridiculous I'd said. I think it was about burning garlic toast again, when my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Front door. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something about the timing made my stomach tighten. I opened the app. Watched the live feed. There he was. Standing in the lobby. Smiling straight into the camera. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. I stood up so fast I knocked over my wine glass. Clara startled, glancing at the shattered stemware, then back at me. "What's wrong?" she asked. I didn't answer. I was already dialing security. "Don't let him in," I snapped into the phone. "Keep him outside. Call the police if he doesn't leave in 30 seconds. Clara's face drained of color. "Who?" I turned the phone to her. The feed was still running. He waved at the camera, like he was greeting an old friend. Her hands flew to her mouth. "I locked the building," I told her. "He's not getting in." But it didn't matter. The damage was done. She was shaking. The police arrived, but by then he was gone. Left just as calmly as he came. No yelling, no confrontation. Just a silent threat. A reminder. He was still out there. And he knew where we lived. That night, Clara stood at the sink, staring into space while the water ran endlessly. I walked up behind her and turned it off. "You okay?" She nodded, but didn't speak. "He wants you scared," I said gently. "Don't give him what he wants." "I'm not scared," she whispered. "I'm tired." "Of what?" "Running. Hiding. Being someone's story instead of my own." She turned to me then, eyes full of quiet fire. "I want to fight, Jack. I don't want to live like this anymore." I took her hands in mine. "Then we fight. Together." The next day, she went to the police with everything: photos, old texts, her statement from the hospital. She got a restraining order. It didn't guarantee anything, but it gave us a piece of paper that said, "Enough." I offered to move. To leave the city if she wanted. Start fresh somewhere no one knew our names. But she shook her head. "No. He doesn't get to take this from me." So we stayed. And we tried to live. Weeks passed. Fall rolled in with golden trees and crisp air. The tension thinned but never left completely, like a smell you couldn't quite place. We went apple picking one weekend, took photos in the orchard, and for a moment, it felt like we were just another couple, drunk on cider and pretending we were safe. And then, just as suddenly, it all began to unravel. It started with the photos. They arrived in an unmarked envelope. No return address. Just 5 glossy prints. One of Clara at the park with me. One of her painting in the living room, through the window. One of her grocery shopping. One of her laughing with a stranger at a cafe. And the last one, her asleep on my couch, curled under a blanket. The angle told me everything. It was taken from inside the apartment. My blood ran cold. I called security. We scoured every inch of the place. Cameras hadn't picked up anything. No broken locks. No signs of entry. But somehow, he'd been inside. Clara didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. She sat up, knees tucked to her chest, whispering over and over, "He was here. He was here." I felt it. I knew it. I didn't try to calm her. I felt it too. The next morning, we found scratches on the back patio door frame, small, deliberate. Like someone testing the lock. Security upped their patrol. We changed the codes. Added another layer of motion sensors. Still, it didn't feel like enough. And then, the biggest blow of all came. Not from him. From her. I came home one evening to find her packing. I stared at the suitcase on the bed like it was a crime scene. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice low. She didn't turn around. "I'm leaving." I stepped forward, my heart racing. "Clara, don't. Please. We can figure this out." She shook her head. "You deserve peace. You deserve someone who doesn't come with shadows and danger and this constant fear." "I don't care about any of that." I shouted, more desperate than angry. "I care about you. I care about you too," she whispered, her voice breaking. "That's why I have to go." I grabbed her hand. "Tell me the truth. Is there something you're not saying? Did he get to you?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "He doesn't have to get to me. He already broke me." "No," I said, pulling her close. "He tried. But you're still here. With me. That means something." She looked up at me, searching my face for something. Strength. Hope. A way out. And then she said the words that shattered me. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. "Pregnant? Is it mine?" I asked before I could stop myself, the words slicing through the room like glass. Her silence was a scream. "Is it mine?" It came out like an accusation, but I hadn't meant it that way, not really. It was fear speaking, panic twisted into syllables. The second the words left my mouth, I saw her crumble. Clara took a step back like I'd struck her, arms wrapping around her stomach instinctively. Her eyes filled with something worse than pain, disappointment. "I can't believe you asked me that," she whispered, voice brittle. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. I didn't know how to fix what I'd just broken. She turned away, her back trembling. "Yes, Jack. It's yours. I haven't been with anyone else. Not since you walked into that dealership." Relief surged through me, but it was tangled in shame. I'd questioned the one person who'd needed me to believe her most. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She didn't answer. Just stood there, one hand pressed to her stomach, the other covering her mouth. Silent tears traced down her cheeks. I walked over, hesitant, like I didn't have the right to be close anymore. Gently, I rested a hand on her shoulder. She flinched at first, then slowly leaned into me. "You should have told me," I said softly. "I didn't know how," she said. "I found out a few days ago. I was going to tell you that night, the night the photos came." The pieces clicked into place. The fear, the sudden distance, the look in her eyes when she saw the picture of herself asleep. She hadn't just been scared for herself. She'd been scared for the life inside her. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, resting my forehead against hers. "We'll protect this baby together. We'll protect you." "But how, Jack?" she asked, her voice cracking. "He got in. He was inside our home. He watches me. I can feel him, like he's breathing down my neck even when I'm alone. I don't know how to fight a ghost." I didn't have an answer. All I had was her. And the promise that I'd try. We didn't sleep that night. Clara lay next to me, head on my chest, while I stared at the ceiling wondering how the hell things had gone so wrong so fast. I bought a car. That's all I did. Walked into a dealership, looking for a new ride and maybe a distraction from my empty life. And now I was in love, under threat, and expecting a child with a woman who'd been running from hell. But for the first time, I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted to stand and fight. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Then the police. Then a friend of mine who owed me a favor and had a very particular skill set, tracking people who didn't want to be found. I gave him James's full name, photos, any old addresses Clara could remember. It didn't take long. By that afternoon, we had his location. He was staying in a crumbling motel 2 towns over, under a fake name. Cash only. No paper trail. Like he was preparing for something. Or hiding after doing something worse. I drove there. Alone. I didn't tell Clara where I was going. She would have tried to stop me. She would have been right to. But I needed to look him in the eye. Not as a victim. Not as someone afraid. As a man about to become a father. As someone who had everything to lose and wasn't willing to lose it. I found him in the motel parking lot, leaning against a beat-up sedan, smoking. When he saw me, he smiled like he'd been expecting me. "You came," he said. "Figured you would." "You've had your fun," I said, keeping my voice level. "It ends now." He chuckled. "You think you're the hero in this story, don't you? The rich guy who swoops in, saves the broken girl, rides off into the sunset. You think that lasts?" "I think you're a coward," I said, stepping closer. "Threatening a pregnant woman. Breaking into our home. Watching her while she sleeps. That's not love. That's possession. And it's over." His smile dropped. "She's mine," he said, voice low and hard. "She always has been. She just forgot for a while. You think a couple months in your apartment can undo years of history? I don't care about your history. I care about her future. And that baby's." For a moment, he just stared at me, jaw tight, eyes cold. Then he laughed again. But this time, it sounded hollow. "You don't even know her," he muttered. "You think you do, but you don't. What's that supposed to mean?" He dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his boot. "Ask her what happened in Portland. Ask her why she really left. You're building your whole life around someone who hasn't even told you who she really is." And just like that, he walked away. That night, I didn't bring it up. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was just trying to get in my head. But doubt is a seed you can't unplant. Clara noticed. She always did. "You're quiet," she said as we ate dinner, her fork barely touching her plate. "I saw him," I said. She froze. "When?" "This afternoon." "Jack," her voice trembled. "Why would you?" "Because I needed to see the threat with my own eyes," I said. "Because I needed to make sure he knew I wasn't afraid." She looked away, guilt written across her face. "He said something before he left," I continued. "Said I should ask you about Portland." Her shoulders tensed like I'd touched an old scar. "Clara," I said gently. "What happened?" She didn't answer at first. Then she pushed her plate away and stood up, pacing. "It's not what you think," she said. "It wasn't some scandal or affair. But I did run." "From what?" She turned to me, eyes glassy. "From myself. From who I used to be. From what he turned me into." She sat down across from me, breathing shaky. "Back then, I thought I loved him. He was charming, magnetic, and for a while, he treated me like I was his entire world. But then he changed. Or maybe I just saw who he really was." I listened as she spoke, every word painting a clearer picture. "He isolated me. Made me quit my job. Told me I was only safe with him. And when I finally tried to leave, he made me pay. Emotionally, financially. He spread lies about me, got me blacklisted from half the jobs I applied to. He told everyone I stole from him that I was unstable. I had to leave the state just to breathe again." My throat tightened. I hated that I doubted her. "He's not just cruel, Jack. He's dangerous in a way people don't see until it's too late. And now that he knows about the baby, he won't stop. He'll find a new way to twist it. He'll try to make it his." "No," I said, standing up. "He won't." She looked up at me, trembling. How can you be sure? Because I won't let him. That night, we made a decision. We were done playing defense. Clara gave a full statement to the police, this time naming James directly. We filed for a formal restraining order with updated evidence, including the photos and the motel location. We worked with a detective who actually cared and promised to assign someone to watch our place discreetly. And then we prepared for what came next. But even as we tried to reclaim peace, I couldn't stop thinking about what James had said. You don't even know her. And part of me wondered, what else was she still too afraid to say? I thought things were settling. For the first time in weeks, the apartment felt warm again, not with heat, but with presence. Clara had started humming while she moved around the kitchen. She painted sunrises instead of storms. She touched her belly now, absent-mindedly, with a look of distant wonder. And I began to believe we were okay. But peace has a way of making you forget that storms don't always come with thunder. Sometimes, they creep in, quiet and patient. It started with a letter. No return address. No postmark. Just a plain white envelope on our doorstep one morning. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed. Centered. You don't deserve a happy ending. That was it. Clara stared at the words like they'd been carved into her soul. I took it from her gently, crumpled it in my fist. It's just noise, I said. He's desperate. But her silence told me she didn't believe that. And if I was honest, neither did I. We took every precaution after that. Moved temporarily into a gated community, top-floor condo, 2 doormen on duty at all times. Clara hated it. Said it felt like a golden cage. I'm not trying to trap you, I told her one night. I'm trying to give you space to breathe without looking over your shoulder. She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. A week later, she had her first ultrasound. I sat beside her, clutching her hand as the screen came to life. And then, there it was. The flicker of a heartbeat. Tiny, rapid, full of promise. Clara cried. I did too. Neither of us spoke. It was too sacred a moment for words. And just for a while, we lived in that moment. Until everything crashed again. It was a Tuesday. I came home late from a business dinner, loosening my tie as I stepped into the condo. I expected silence. Clara usually slept early these days. But instead, I heard voices. Not loud. Not yelling. Just, intense. I crept down the hallway toward the living room. That's when I heard it. Why didn't you tell him about the clinic? The voice was familiar, female. Soft, but sharp underneath. Clara's. And then, because it's none of his business. It's over. My breath caught. I stood frozen, just outside the doorway. Another voice now. One I didn't recognize. You think it's really over, Clara? With James involved, nothing's ever truly over. I stepped inside. Clara and a woman I'd never seen before were sitting on the couch. The stranger was tall, polished, with cold eyes and a designer coat that cost more than most people's rent. They both turned to me. Clara's face drained of color. Jack. I nodded slowly. I'm guessing this isn't a casual coffee date. The woman stood, unfazed. She extended a hand. I'm Evelyn. Clara's sister. Sister? Clara had never mentioned family. Not once. I looked at her. You never told me you had a sister. She looked down, ashamed. It's complicated. I turned back to Evelyn. You said something about a clinic. She raised an eyebrow. That's for Clara to explain. And with that, she picked up her coat and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots on the tile floor. Clara didn't speak for a full minute. Then she sank onto the couch, hands in her lap, and said quietly, I was pregnant before. The words hit harder than I expected. Before what? I asked. Before you. Before James got really bad. Before I left Portland. I sat beside her slowly. It wasn't his, she said. It was someone else. Someone kind. But James found out, and she swallowed hard. He made it disappear. I didn't understand. What do you mean, he? He manipulated the doctor. Lied to get power of attorney over my care. I was young, scared, and he convinced the clinic I was unstable. He signed the paperwork. Terminated the pregnancy without my consent. I stared at her, horrified. I didn't even know it was gone until after the sedation wore off, she said. I woke up empty. Alone. I felt sick. He stole my child, she whispered. And I've never forgiven myself for letting him get close enough to do it. My voice cracked. Clara, why didn't you tell me? Because this baby is a miracle, Jack. And I didn't want it tainted by that past. I wanted something clean. Something just ours. I held her then. And she sobbed into my chest like she'd been holding it in for years. I understood now. The fear. The distance. The way she watched the shadows. She wasn't just afraid of James. She was afraid of history repeating itself. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the city breathe below us, wondering how far someone like James would go. And then my phone buzzed. A message. Block number, you don't even know the truth. She's lying to you, like she lied to everyone else. Attached was a file. Audio. I hesitated, then pressed play. A grainy recording played. Clara's voice. No, I'm not telling him. He doesn't need to know. He'll walk away if he finds out what I did. Another voice, Evelyn's. You think lies will protect you. I think the truth will destroy everything. The file ended. My heart pounded. I didn't know when it was recorded. Or if it was real. But it was enough to shatter the fragile trust we'd built. The next morning, Clara found me packing. Her face twisted. What are you doing? I got a message, I said. From him. With a recording. She paled. I need to know, Clara. What haven't you told me? She looked at me like I'd just become a stranger. I've told you everything that matters. No, I said firmly. You told me what you think I can handle. That's not the same. Her hands shook. Jack, please. Don't let him win. I hesitated. For the first time since meeting her, I didn't know if I could trust her. And that terrified me more than James ever could. She stood there, barefoot, in the middle of the condo we'd built into our safe place, and I saw it in her eyes, the silent fear of abandonment. It wasn't just about me packing. It was about her whole world collapsing again. I need space, Clara, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. For how long? She asked. I don't know, I replied honestly, my grip tightening on the handle of my overnight bag. But I need time to figure out what's real. She nodded slowly, biting her lip until it turned white. Okay, she whispered. But please, please don't disappear. I won't, I promised. I just need to breathe. And then I left. Not forever. Just for clarity. But walking out the door felt like walking off a ledge. I spent 2 nights in a hotel downtown. I couldn't sleep. Not really. I kept playing the recording over and over again, dissecting every syllable, every pause, every breath. He'll walk away if he finds out what I did. What had she done? I didn't want to believe she was lying. But trust doesn't survive on wanting, it survives on truth. And the truth felt slippery now, like trying to hold water in my hands. On the 3rd morning, I got a call. From Evelyn. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity, no, desperation, overrode my better judgment. I didn't mean to blow everything up, she said without greeting. But Clara, she doesn't always do the right thing when she's scared. What did she do? I asked, my voice hollow. She made a deal, Evelyn said. A long time ago. With James. I felt the blood rush to my head. What kind of deal? A secret to buy her freedom. Something that cost her, morally. I don't even know the full details. But I do know she's terrified you'll see her differently if you know. I already do, I muttered. Then maybe it's time you heard her side before letting the past decide your future. And with that, she hung up. I went back that night. I told myself I just needed closure, answers, but the second I saw Clara open the door, wearing my hoodie and puffy-eyed from crying, I realized I just missed her. "Come in," she said softly, stepping aside. The place was too quiet. Her paintings were gone from the walls. The coffee table was bare. It looked like a hotel room, stripped of life. "I'm sorry," I said. "For walking out." She shook her head. "No. I should have told you everything." We sat across from each other on the couch. The same couch where I'd fallen in love with her over midnight talks and sleepy laughter. "There's more to Portland," she began. "More than James. More than the baby I lost." I braced myself. "After the abortion," she said, her voice distant like she was watching a movie instead of reliving her own trauma, "I was broken. I wanted to escape so badly I would have sold my soul. And I did something close to that." She swallowed hard. "I agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement for a company James had dealings with. It was shady, unethical, maybe even illegal. But I needed the hush money to start over. To vanish. I signed papers. I kept my mouth shut. And in return, they made James let me go." I stared at her. "So he traded you for silence?" She nodded. "That's why he's after me now. Not because of love, not even out of revenge. Because I'm a liability. If I speak, everything he built with those people falls apart." It clicked. The surveillance. The threats. The quiet letter. It wasn't about our relationship, it was about control. Clara continued, "I thought the money would buy peace, but it only bought distance. I never used it. I left it in an untouched account. I've been running ever since." I leaned back, stunned. "So, this is bigger than just us." "Yes," she whispered. "And I was afraid to tell you because I didn't want you dragged into it. I didn't want you to see me as some morally compromised person." "I don't," I said immediately. "I see you as someone who survived." She looked up, eyes wide. "I was scared," I admitted. "But not of you. Of losing you. Of waking up one day and realizing you weren't who I thought you were." "And now?" she asked. I reached across the table and took her hand. "Now I see you more clearly than ever." The next few days moved fast. We contacted my legal team and opened an investigation into the shell company Clara had mentioned. Her NDA was flawed, coercive and likely unenforceable. We turned over the documents to the authorities. The police finally took our concerns seriously when financial crime got involved. James was no longer just a stalker. He was a suspect. And Clara. Clara started painting again. Her strokes were still cautious, but they were bright. We thought we were past the worst. We were wrong. It happened on a Friday night. I was at the office late, finalizing a presentation. Clara was home, texting me photos of baby clothes she'd found online. I smiled at her excitement, my phone buzzing with each new picture. Then, silence. No texts for 20 minutes. Then 30. Then an hour. I called. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. Something twisted in my gut. I raced home. The front door was ajar. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. Clara. No answer. I searched every room, my voice rising. Clara. Then I found it. A note on the floor. Typed, like before. You were warned. And below it, her phone, shattered. I called the police. Called everyone. Pushed every favor I was owed. Security footage showed a man in a hoodie entering the building under a fake delivery badge. He disabled the cameras outside our unit. Gone. She was gone. And I felt helpless for the first time in years. Until I got a message, one I'd been dreading. A photo. Clara, bound to a chair. Tear-streaked face. One hand resting protectively on her stomach. Underneath, a message. Meet me where it all started. Come alone. Or she disappears. I stared at the screen, breath shallow. My world had narrowed to one moment, one choice. And I knew what I had to do. It was the photo that broke me. Not the note, not the threats, not even the fact that James had managed to outmaneuver every precaution we'd taken. It was Clara. The look in her eyes. Not fear, though that was there. Not pain, though I could feel it through the image. It was trust. Somehow, even bound to a chair in some godforsaken place, she looked like she believed in me. Like she believed I'd come. And she was right. The message said to come where it all started. For James and Clara, that was Portland. But for us, for Clara and me, there was only one place that made sense. The dealership. Where I first saw her. Where this whole thing, this whole wild spiral of love and loss and danger, had begun. I didn't hesitate. I didn't call the cops. Didn't tell my legal team or send someone in my place. Because if James was watching, and I brought backup, Clara could die. It was on me now. And I was going to end it. The dealership was closed. Of course it was. It was after midnight, and the parking lot was bathed in eerie orange light from the street lamps. My footsteps echoed across the asphalt like they didn't belong in this world. I wasn't armed. I wasn't stupid either. I had a phone in my pocket with a GPS tracker, set to ping my assistant every 5 minutes. But that was a last resort. A failsafe. I just wanted Clara safe. The glass doors were unlocked. That already felt like a trap. I stepped inside. And there he was. James. Standing in the same exact spot where I'd once shaken the hand of a salesman and unknowingly met the love of my life. He was older than I remembered. Not in years, but in weight. In eyes that had seen too much darkness and invited more. And behind him, in the service bay, I saw Clara. Still tied to a chair. Gagged now. Barely able to move. I took a step forward. "Aha," James said, raising a finger. One step closer, and she screams. I froze. "You have a choice," he said, his voice oddly calm. "Walk away now, and forget you ever met her. Or, keep playing the hero, and bury her yourself." "You're sick," I said through clenched teeth. He smiled. "No. I'm practical. You ruined my life. Took my wife. Turned her against me. She was never yours," I snapped. "You controlled her. You terrorized her. She owed me," he growled, stepping closer. "I built her. Fed her. Protected her. You destroyed her." "No," he said, shaking his head, voice rising. "You did." Clara let out a muffled noise. I looked at her, and she met my eyes. Even then, she was calm. Trusting. I felt rage boil beneath my skin. But I knew I had to stay composed. "Let her go," I said. "This isn't going to fix anything." "It's not about fixing," he said with a smile. "It's about finishing." He pulled a phone from his pocket. Pressed something on the screen. A second later, a digital voice echoed from the back of the room. Timer activated. 5 minutes. My heart dropped. A bomb. "Are you insane?" I shouted, rushing forward. James pulled a gun. "Don't test me." I stopped. Hands raised. "Undo this," I said, steadying my voice. "You can walk away. Turn yourself in. I'll make sure you get help." "I don't want help," he snarled. "I want revenge." Then came a sound I didn't expect. Laughter. Clara. Through the gag. It wasn't loud. It wasn't manic. It was mocking. James turned, startled. "What's funny?" She shook her head slowly, eyes burning. "You," she mumbled through the fabric. "You're so small now." He froze. "What did you say?" She leaned forward, gag slipping slightly. "You used to terrify me. But now. I pity you." His hand trembled. "You think he's the reason I left you," she whispered. "No. I left you the day you took my child." The gun dipped. "You took everything, James. And I still rebuilt. Without you. In spite of you. He screamed and turned toward her. And I tackled him. We hit the floor hard. The gun clattered away, skidding under a nearby car. I punched him once, then twice, then again, until his lip split. He swung wildly, hitting my shoulder, but I didn't stop. Behind us, the countdown kept ticking. 4 minutes. I grabbed his shirt. Where's the bomb? He laughed, blood on his teeth. Too late. I slammed his head against the floor. Where? Clara shouted behind us, something unintelligible. Then I saw it. A blinking light beneath the lift platform where her chair was bolted down. I sprinted over, yanking at her restraints. Hold still. She cried, Jack, it's not real. The bomb, it's fake. I paused. What? It's a bluff, she gasped. Wires, timer, but no explosives. He doesn't have that kind of access anymore. Behind me, James let out a low groan. He's bluffing, she repeated. I saw him setting it up. I ripped the tape from her mouth. You sure? She nodded fiercely. 3 minutes. I picked up the device. The casing was cheap. Lightweight. No chemical smell. No shrapnel. A scare tactic. I looked at her again. And we both burst into shaky, disbelieving laughter. I untied her. Pulled her into my arms. Held her tighter than ever before. You okay? I asked, heart still hammering. I am now, she whispered. Are you? I nodded, but inside I knew something had shifted forever. The police arrived 6 minutes later, thanks to the GPS ping and the emergency alert I sent during the fight. James was arrested on the spot, screaming incoherently about betrayal and justice. Clara gave her statement, holding my hand the entire time. They found evidence on him, USB drives, documents, even fake IDs. His life of shadows was finally over. And ours? Ours was just beginning. 2 months later, Clara gave birth to a baby girl. We named her Hope. Not because it sounded pretty, but because she was the living proof that love could survive anything. Even fear. Even betrayal. Even James. Hope had her mother's eyes. And when I held her for the first time, I thought of the car. That stupid, beautiful car. How I just wanted leather seats and a good sound system. And instead, I found the greatest ride of my life. Sometimes, the past doesn't die quietly. Sometimes, it screams and claws and tries to drag you down with it. But if you fight hard enough, if you love deep enough, you can rise. Together. Clara and I. We didn't get a perfect fairy tale. We got something better. A real one. And I'd choose it again, every single time.